if I'm the Cleveland Browns, seeing what is transpiring now, I would love to understand your thought process of just how they're managing Shedeur. Is it a realistic situation for him to play this year, or what should we expect from your
Well, from what I'm told, Dylan Gabriel has been better, has played better, and is more ready, whatever that means. But this is what I was told. I think if you can sit and watch Flacco and understand preparing for
the entire cabal of NFL owners is now sweating harder than a head coach in a sudden death overtime, and it is all thanks to Cam Newton, who just detonated a bombshell about Shedeur Sanders that absolutely nobody saw coming. Just picture it, a room full of billionaires in their designer suits, collectively losing their minds because one single rookie quarterback has just completely and utterly flipped their carefully polished, league-approved script upside down. What could possibly be so dangerous about Shedeur that it has the league's most entrenched power brokers scrambling like a busted chaotic play? Oh, you are about to find out, and trust me when I tell you, it is absolutely wild.
My source tells me that it wasn't just the Baltimore Ravens. It was three teams: the Cleveland Browns, the Philadelphia Eagles, and it also was Baltimore Ravens. Now, this is where the perspective gets skewed, because why would Shedeur not want to go to Baltimore? If any team has been on the cutting edge of saying, we figured out the recipe of drafting and developing good players to play great and elite, that's one of the teams that does it at a high level. Why not go to...
If you're enjoying, please subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you think.
And if you are enjoying watching this entire system get exposed, then you need to subscribe to the channel because it helps more than you think. The NFL draft has always been a polished, carefully orchestrated spectacle, billionaires in their fancy suits, playing a high-stakes version of real-life fantasy football with college kids. But this year, something didn't just snap. The entire carefully constructed facade completely imploded, and it happened somewhere between the clouds of overpriced cigar smoke, the creak of the expensive leather chairs, and the drone of the same old "we're building for the future" speeches, when Cam Newton decided to pull out the single biggest Uno reverse card of the entire decade.
Habit that I've seen him have is he does not step up in the pocket.
He casually, yet with a devastating impact, let it slip that Shedeur Sanders, yes, the very same Shedeur who tossed for over 10,000 yards in college like it was a game of backyard catch, had actually and actively rejected 3 separate NFL teams on draft night. Not 1, not 2, 3. If sheer, unadulterated arrogance had an Instagram account, it would have immediately posted a screenshot of that exact moment with the simple one-word caption, mood.
Now, we know reports came out in the midst of the Baltimore Ravens-Cleveland Browns game on Sunday that Adam Schefter reported that Shedeur Sanders declined the option to be drafted by the Baltimore Ravens in the 5th round at the 141st pick. And a lot of people had a lot to say, and Cam Newton was on ESPN First Take, and he stated his position on what he thought about Shedeur Sanders declining that option.
And this is the precise unprecedented moment where the NFL's old guard of owners collectively lost their minds, because they are used to being the undisputed puppet masters. The script is supposed to go like this: a kid sits there at the draft, tear-streaked face, hugging his grandma and profusely thanking Jesus for the honor of being drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars, even if it means he has to spend the next 3 years of his life eating turf in complete and utter obscurity. But not Shedeur. He didn't just sit there like some wide-eyed freshman, pathetically grateful for whatever crumbs were tossed his way. No, he sat there like he was speed dating entire NFL franchises, casually swiping left on billion-dollar organizations as if they were nothing more than a series of desperate, unimpressive Tinder profiles.
Say this, and I think if I'm Shedeur, you would ideally want to learn behind a guy like Lamar Jackson for this particular reason and this particular reason only. Not a lot of players can really cope with your star power, with your stardom, right? And let's really give credit where credit is due. At 28 years old, being a phenomenal athlete, the thing that I respect a guy like Lamar Jackson the most, we've never heard him have any off the field issues.
And Cam Newton? Oh, he was not about to let this bombshell slide into the murky territory of mere rumor. He spelled it out with a crystal clarity, revealing the truth with that trademark, confident swagger, the kind of delivery that makes you question if he just imparted timeless wisdom or a bold new fashion tip. Cam painted the entire vivid picture. Shedeur Sanders had actual tangible options, and instead of allowing his professional fate to be casually tossed around like a stadium hot dog, he seized complete and total control. And the NFL media? Oh, they absolutely hated this. They immediately began to spin it, painting a narrative that Shedeur was entitled, spoiled, and disrespectful. But the truth of the matter was far, far juicier. He was just being strategic. Let's just rewind for a second. Shedeur Sanders was projected by many to be a top 10 pick in the draft. So how did he end up falling? The math simply didn't add up, unless of course that math was being cooked by a cabal of teams who were absolutely terrified of a rookie with actual self-awareness. And then we get to the 3 teams he reportedly rejected. Oh, and these weren't just random names pulled out of a hat. First up were the Baltimore Ravens. Just imagine being offered a premium ticket to go and sit in Lamar Jackson's massive shadow for the next decade. It sounds kind of cute until you realize you would have a better statistical chance of winning the Powerball than you would of ever touching the field. Shedeur looked at that opportunity and basically said, no thanks, I don't need to be Lamar's stunt double.
And look, Shedeur is not an athletic quarterback where he's going to play a different game. Obviously, he's more athletic than Flacco, but I said when they drafted him, I thought that he'd start a game this year. And hopefully he does, just to get that opportunity. I think what surprised me is when he manipulated the draft and told the Ravens not to draft him. That, to me, you're going to be in a first-class organization. You're going to learn from a lot of different people there. And
next up came the Philadelphia Eagles, another powerhouse franchise. Another team with an established MVP caliber quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who was fresh off a mega contract that had his future locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Shedeur Sanders knew the tired old script: draft him, sit him, and let him rot on the bench behind Hurts until the fans completely forget his name. The Philadelphia Eagles probably thought they were doing him a massive favor by even considering him. Shedeur, however, thought otherwise, because for him, respect doesn't mean being relegated to the role of a permanent, well-paid bench ornament. And now here's the part of the story that completely melted the internet. Was Shedeur being arrogant, or was he just being incredibly smart? The traditionalists immediately wagged their fingers in disapproval. They accused him of disrespect, of not paying his dues, but it was Cam Newton who completely flipped the script on that narrative. He powerfully argued that this was not a display of arrogance at all. It was in fact an act of profound respect. It was respect for Lamar Jackson. It was respect for Jalen Hurts. Shedeur didn't want to just sit around, crossing his fingers and secretly hoping that someone would blow out their knees so he could get a shot. No, he wanted his own, legitimate shot, and he knew exactly where he would never get it.
Now, more evidence and more facts have come out that it wasn't just the Baltimore Ravens that was on the clock to pick Shedeur Sanders. I said this to you guys in a previous video. Why come we haven't heard about the teams that didn't want to select Shedeur Sanders? Now, all of a sudden, 4 or 5 months later, we're bringing up stuff that don't even make no sense, has nothing to do with nothing. Everything surrounding around Shedeur Sanders, like I told you guys.
And the fan base absolutely exploded. Half of them immediately rallied behind Shedeur's bold snubs, passionately applauding him for turning down powerhouse franchises with the discerning taste of a picky foodie who has just rejected a plate of fast food. The other half screamed, bad business decision, completely convinced that he had just single-handedly ruined his entire career before it had even started. Meanwhile, the NFL's owners just sat in their opulent, marble-clad offices, wondering when exactly the peasants had been given the right to choose their own castles. Because let's be real, this was never just about one player. This was about the entire delicate balance of power in the league suddenly shifting, and billionaires absolutely hate shifts, unless of course it involves their stock portfolios. And let's not for a second forget the powerful Deion Sanders factor in all of this. Shedeur was not just raised by any dad, he was raised by prime time. The league thought this was a simple selection rejection show, but Shedeur, under his father's guidance, had turned it into a full-blown negotiation table. And in that calculus, Cleveland became the bet, the gamble, the one high-risk, high-reward proposition that actually made a modicum of sense. Sure, it is a franchise that practically runs on a steady diet of heartbreak and chaos, but it was also the one and only landing spot where Shedeur didn't have to immediately play the role of a backup singer to a superstar quarterback. In Cleveland, the path to QB1 wasn't blocked by established legends. It was blocked by a rotating cast of guys whose names the fans can barely even remember from week to week. And for Shedeur, that was the opening.
An organization that is not good at developing quarterbacks. Ownership hasn't been good. Team hasn't been good. You get bad habits. And I think being in a good organization and understanding top to bottom would have been more important. But I think he'll get a chance. I just don't know if you get a chance for a bad team, then people say, yep, see, told you he couldn't play.
Well, see, with that, hearing that he did not want to go to the Baltimore Ravens was a definite head scratcher. But when you have certain other details about that situation come out, when he does have the utmost respect for him.
Now, here is the big picture, because this is about something much bigger than just one draft pick, and it is certainly bigger than one explosive Cam Newton podcast soundbite. This is the very beginning of a brand new era, an era where players no longer just show up and smile politely for the cameras. They now call the shots. They turn down billion-dollar offers like they are bad Tinder dates. They gamble on themselves in ways that make the old guard owners sweat bullets. And Shedeur Sanders has just become the official poster boy for this entire movement. So, here is the million-dollar question. Will this audacious move ultimately make Shedeur the visionary who completely rewrote the rules of draft day, or will he become the cautionary tale that parents use when lecturing their kids about the supposed virtues of humility? The clock is now ticking. The Cleveland Browns are a notorious minefield. Cam Newton says he is ready, and the fans are split right down the middle. If Shedeur Sanders can look three established powerhouse franchises directly in the eye and say, thanks, but no thanks, what is to stop the next wave of top-tier rookies from doing the exact same thing? Just imagine the absolute chaos if quarterbacks started acting like full-blown free agents before they have even signed their rookie deals. That is every single NFL owner's worst nightmare, because in that world, suddenly, they are no longer the ones holding the leash.
What he said about Shedeur, by the way, was pretty spot on in terms of, like, who cares that he said it. And listen, if you have doubts about how good he would be, I threw this out there yesterday. Like, if I look around this league right now, and I look at some of the quarterback play that's been going on around this league, like, do I think that he couldn't put up at least like Spencer Rattler numbers to this point, or JJ McCarthy numbers because he's been bad, or Russell Wilson, who just got...
Cam Newton then fanned these burgeoning flames with an almost gleeful abandon. He didn't just expose the story, he practically threw gasoline on it, set the entire thing ablaze, and then roasted marshmallows over the resulting fire. He openly laughed at the very idea of the media trying to paint Shedeur as arrogant. To Cam, this was not a simple game of checkers, and the look on the NFL's collective stunned face said it all. They were simply not ready for a rookie quarterback who came equipped with a GPS system that was finely tuned to self-preservation instead of blind, unquestioning loyalty. Now let's talk about that Ravens situation, because it is pure, unadulterated comedy gold. The Baltimore front office probably thought they were magnanimously offering Shedeur the golden ticket. Come learn under the great Lamar Jackson. Absorb his greatness. And then one day, maybe after a decade or so, you'll get a pity start when Lamar happens to catch the flu. Except Shedeur saw right through that tired old script. He wasn't auditioning for a background role in the Lamar Jackson show. He wanted to write his own damn screenplay. And the Philadelphia Eagles, they strut around as if they are running some kind of quarterback utopia. But the reality is, they have locked up Jalen Hurts with enough guaranteed money to purchase a small, developing country. No rookie quarterback on earth is breaking through that financial fortress. The Eagles likely thought that Shedeur would be honored just to wear their clipboard, as if it were a crown jewel. Instead, he treated their offer like it was a spam email, because he didn't need a crash course in invisibility. For him, respecting Jalen Hurts did not mean he had to sacrifice his own career.
He's been a stand-up guy, And if all of our opinions have always led to his on-field performance, not a lot of people can relate to what Shedeur Sanders has been through in his whole life. And that right there serves even more to make him a better player because it's the totality of the position. And I think Lamar Jackson would have been able to relate to him in many ways.
Such a good point.
But how many people are coming out of college thinking about learning instead of playing?
And now, Cleveland. This is where the story gets truly fun. The Cleveland Browns, bless their chaotic, beautiful souls, are a franchise that treats its quarterbacks like disposable coffee cups. Every single season, there is a new one. Sometimes there are 2, and occasionally there are 3, just to spice things up. If you are a quarterback in Cleveland, you either flame out spectacularly, you physically break down, or you somehow manage to stumble your way into local legend status simply for surviving the sheer, unadulterated madness. It is the quarterback Thunderdome, and for Shedeur, that wasn't a warning sign. It was a giant blinking neon opportunity. Why waste years of your life standing idly behind Lamar and Jalen when you can roll the dice in Cleveland, a city where the bar for quarterback competence is so incredibly low, it is practically underground. The NFL's old guard absolutely hates this kind of independent, strategic thinking. And speaking of the traditionalists, let's go ahead and drag Alex Smith into this entire mess. He was very quick to suggest that Shedeur had blown it, that he should have just humbly and gratefully accepted whichever franchise decided to throw him a bone, and that is incredibly easy for him to say. He spent half of his own career being treated like a replaceable placeholder while his own team was out shopping for younger, shinier models. Of course, he wants the new generation of quarterbacks to follow the same miserable script. Misery, after all, loves company. But Shedeur Sanders didn't come to the NFL to be a company man. He came to flip tables.
5th round pick. Put your head down and grind. The game is not just about completing the pass. The game is more focused on the neck up. Hey, what's my side adjust? Hey, who am I? Hotter reps to be had, hopefully, throughout this preseason.
The fans, meanwhile, immediately turned social media into a full-scale war zone. One camp was screaming that Shedeur was a true visionary, a player who was rewriting the entire rulebook before even stepping foot on a professional field. The other camp furiously insisted that he was writing checks that his unproven rookie arm simply could not cash. And caught right in the middle of this firestorm were the NFL's owners, who were now realizing for the very first time that the players they draft aren't just cattle, they are actual legitimate businessmen. And that is the part that really truly burns, because if players start thinking for themselves, then what comes next? Guaranteed respect, actual control over their own careers? The owners simply cannot have that. It completely messes with their carefully constructed system. And looming over all of this, of course, was the inescapable presence of Deion Sanders, prime time himself. You know for a fact that he has been whispering in Shedeur's ear since he was playing Pee-wee football, relentlessly preaching the gospel of never settling, of never bowing, and of never letting anyone else control your own destiny. The Cleveland Browns may be dysfunctional, but dysfunction breeds chances. Shedeur Sanders is not stepping into Cleveland to hold a clipboard and smile politely for the cameras. He is stepping directly into a quarterback carousel, a place where one single good drive can instantly catapult him into the starter conversation. Now compare that to Baltimore, where he could throw perfect passes in practice for 5 solid years and still never see the field, or to Philly, where his very name would just collect dust on a forgotten depth chart. Cleveland is undeniably messy, but in that messiness lies a golden opportunity.
Being the 5th round pick, you may make the team, you may not make the team. You may make practice squad, you may not make practice squad. But this is the kicker though, Peggy. You still got to be a professional because there's 31 other teams that are also looking too. How you go about your meetings on a day-to-day, how you perform, the antics, all the things that they don't really talk about, but they see. People are paying close attention to Shedeur Sanders. You want to say, oh, they just humbling him. Like, no, bro, he's no different than any other 5th round pick in the NFL. It's a grind. Everybody who gets selected, even 1st round picks, have a threshold of pay.
And Shedeur, armed with a potent combination of stubbornness and unshakable confidence, decided to bet on that very chaos. This is the new emerging NFL storyline. Rookies are now calling their own shots. Not all of them, of course. Most are still going to cry on stage and thank their high school coach for the honor of being drafted by the Houston Texans. But the powerful precedent has now now been set. If you've got the stats, if you've got the confidence, and if you've got the nerve, you can now play a high-stakes game of chess with the billionaires. And that single terrifying fact absolutely petrifies the old guard, because once one single player proves that it can be done, the entire dam breaks. The real fascinating question now is how this story ultimately ages. Will Shedeur be celebrated as the revolutionary quarterback who refused to play the role of a mere sidekick and single-handedly forced the entire NFL to adapt? Or will he become the tragic cautionary tale of the kid who simply got too big for his cleats? He has already rejected billion-dollar franchises as if they were items on a dollar menu, and he has already made NFL owners sweat in places they didn't even know they could sweat. That is not just bold, that is revolutionary. And revolutionary figures, whether they ultimately rise or spectacularly crash, always leave the league forever changed.